those who don't know who I am, I'm CJ Werleman. I'm a journalist, I'm a columnist with Inside Arabia. Now, if you don't know who Inside Arabia is, I'll tell you. Inside Arabia is based in Washington, D.C. They have a stellar team of nearly an all-female crew of dedicated journalists and editors who are dedicated to exposing and creating awareness about injustices in the Arab world. I think they're one of the most exciting magazines going around. It's been a thrill to work with them. It's because of their dedication to these kinds of issues that we're having this chat with Omar Ameen's attorney today. Now, if you can follow Inside Arabia at insidearabia.com. You can find my work. You can also find the work of many other brilliant journalists and columnists and the like. You can also follow Inside Arabia on Facebook and Twitter, and obviously here at Instagram, which is where you guys are now. Well, without waffling on too much, let's talk about Omar Ameen. He's an Iraqi refugee who spent the last 3 years in prison, in a federal prison, charged with committing a crime, or charged with bogus terrorism charges, charged with being an ISIS commander, charged with carrying out the murder of an Iraqi policeman while in Iraq. Rachelle Barbour, she's truly, Omar can think he's lucky stars that he has somebody like Rachelle on his side, because you're truly an inspiration in the way you've fought relentlessly, tooth and nail, to free this man. You're almost there. So I guess for the benefit of people tuning in right now, tell us a little about what Omar's experience has been for the last 3 years.
Oh, wow. That's a short story. Yeah, so the case kicked off in August 2018 when Omar got woken up by a heavy pounding on his door, and it was the FBI. His teenage son opened the door got pushed open, and that was the last time that Omar slept in his bed. He was taken by the FBI that day. They searched his apartment. He didn't even kiss his family goodbye, because he knew that whatever it was a mistake, because he knew he hadn't done anything. And that just stays with me, that idea that he just thought he'd be home that night. You know, he thought, this is the US, this is not my home country. Someone's gonna listen to me, this is just a mistake. It's someone else they want. And he still hasn't kissed his family. He's been in since August 2018 at our local jail, and eventually we won. I'll cut to the chase there. That made the long story short. And we won last week, and we beat back the extradition charges. So what the FBI had arrested him on was these charges out of Iraq that it was just every heinous thing you can imagine. And all those stories are still on the internet. I mean, he's still vilified as an ISIS commander who hung out with Baghdadi all over the internet. And we pushed back the whole time. We investigated, we traveled, got records from Turkey, and because he was living in Turkey, he had nothing to do with this. I mean, imagine any of us, you're there in your home and someone says you did something, a place you weren't, someone you didn't have anything to do with, and that was Omar's nightmare. And I wish I could say it was over, but it's not over.
No, I mean, I cover a lot of stories which involve misery and suffering and injustice, obviously. As I was saying to my team at Inside Arabia, every story that I cover exacts some sort of emotional toll on me, but Omar's case in particular, there's something about his story. It's a singular human face that, a lot of stories that I cover deal with lots of deaths and displacement, and we sometimes get lost in the fog of these numbers, these huge numbers. But when you see it at an individual level, it really brings home to bear, how a criminal justice system, how that can fail an individual and what that impact can have on his life. I mean, solitary confinement, right, for most of these last 3 years. How has, describe his mental and his emotional state, having endured, that kind of length of time in prison.
I mean, it's been a roller coaster, especially the last week and a half. Omar came to us, in shock, saying immediately, I don't know why I'm here. Oh, well, you're charged with murdering a policeman in Iraq in 2014. Oh, I was in Turkey at the time. And, everything since that day one, has been pushing back against that. So I think at the beginning, like I mentioned, when the FBI knocked on his door, there was a lot of hope because, we can sort this out, right? I mean, this is pretty easily sorted. And the FBI, the US government, they don't want to go after the wrong guy. So clearly there's just a mistake. There's something going on. We're going to show that he was in Turkey, and this will be taken care of relatively quickly. And then the hope started to drain away. The US government was pushing really hard, very aggressively, very quickly. We're talking about, I work in Sacramento, California. And most of my cases happen right here in Sacramento. And all of a sudden we had a case where the crime was in Iraq and the alibi was in Turkey. And I don't speak Arabic or Turkish. And that's a lot, right? And it had happened 4 years prior. So we started digging in and asking for time, and the government was just go, go, go. And Omar at one point got severely depressed because I think it just hit him that he might never get out, that really he might get returned. And Omar knew what was facing him if he was returned.
And what was facing him in Iraq if he had been?
Torture, execution. It's pervasive in the system there. It's especially pervasive for ISIS suspects. This was a death penalty case, and it was charged as a death penalty case in Iraq. So there was no question of, this is a fraud charge or something like that. But it was going to be torture. It was going to be no due process. And Omar, I think because he grew up there and had heard stories about prisons, he knew exactly what the torture was going to be, and he was terrified. So he went through that. And then we started getting the information we needed. We got cooperation from a branch of the Turkish government that had Omar's refugee sign-in sheets, where he went weekly to the foreigners police in Mersin, the town where he was living in, and we got those signatures. We got statements from dozens of people saying he was in Turkey and he was not in Iraq. We were able to get a lot of his refugee records from the UN, from all the various agencies that really had sort of wrapped around him in Turkey and were facilitating his travel to the US and his resettlement. So we were able to really document that this was an incredibly overseen part of his life. This wasn't just him in Turkey having snuck across the border, hanging out. This was him being registered, signing in weekly. And the fact that we were making headway meant everything to Omar, gave him hope again. But hope can be really tragic. The victim's parents were very cooperative with us. They said, we were there. We don't think Omar did it. We didn't mean to accuse him. I don't know what that is, what that accusation is. We're being manipulated. Every time we got something good, we would take it to the prosecutors and say, is this enough? You guys want to do the right thing, right? You don't really want to do this. And we were just turned away. So it was. But even
more striking, or, I don't want to use the word sinister, was not only was the district attorney or the prosecutors not cooperating, but were they blocking, evidence, particularly his phone transcripts, which proved he was in Turkey.
And ironically, those phone records were what sealed the deal for our judge, and we did get them eventually. But because the Department of Justice, so the agency in Washington D.C., where the local prosecutors here, that's their head agency, because they blocked return correspondence from Turkey about those requests for 8 months. We had no idea that Turkey had said they would get us those records. And we were going to court. The judge was asking, well, can we go forward? What about these records? It was clear the judge really wanted them. and the prosecutors sat silent. And I don't know, there may be some deniability, there may be some attempt to say it was a mistake, but I know that it cost Omar 8 months of his life, because now he's been released by the judge, because the judge saw those records and agreed that they were completely exonerating.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks ago. The judge has made his ruling. Looked at all the evidence. Clearly, this is an an innocent man. So, you expected, I expected him to be released to his family that are waiting for him in California. So why isn't he free?
Again, the roller coaster of emotions. And I was just on the phone with Omar as he recounted that day. I hadn't really asked him about it before because it's been too fresh and there's been too many logistics to deal with. And he talked about, we get the answer from the judge, we get the order throwing out the extradition case, something we've worked on for almost 3 years. And we tell Omar, and it's just glee. It's, the heights of emotion, the best thing possible. And then he gets taken by the immigration police here, the ICE. So he's now in immigration detention in Bakersfield, not in Sacramento. So that's about a 4-hour drive away. His family can't visit him there. His wife and children aren't able to go because it's too far away. And we start fresh. And what really is maddening is that it's the charges that were filed back in August of 2018. That the day he got arrested by the FBI, it's the same idea, it's the same story, just a different tune.
But what's bewildering is he's been released to ICE, which handles immigration, obviously. So undocumented migrants in the US that get swept up in these dragnets. But he was in the United States as a lawful, legal status refugee. So why has he been handed over to ICE? It makes no sense.
Because back when ICE filed sort of the document that started this, I guess you call it like a deportation case, a removal case, they thought he was a terrorist. And so if a terrorist really had snuck into the United States, they could be theoretically charged, arrested by ICE, and deported on the basis that, oh, you're really a terrorist, and you said you weren't when you applied for refugee status. So therefore you lied to us, so therefore we can kick you out, right? I mean, it's another means other than the criminal justice system or extradition to try to get to the same end.
Right.
But it's very galling because we've just spent 3 years demolishing any basis that anyone could have.
Proving his innocence.
Yeah. Right. He's completely innocent. So why are we doing this again? I mean, it's just, I don't understand it. And I don't know if, ICE is sort of going to turn around and go, oh, right. Okay. Now we've read through this and now we understand and, sorry for your trouble. Or if this is really the U.S. government doubling down and just trying to do the same thing a different way. I mean, I hope against hope for that is the first, that it's an error, that it's, kind of left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing. But as time slips by, and now it's been 10 days, the hope that someone there will look at this and say, that we need to deal with this. It's just evaporating.
I guess this speaks to a jurisdictional question and a question that's way above my head. So, and I'm sure you know the answer. But let's say Donald Trump was still the president, and obviously the Department of Immigration comes under his command. Trump had used Omar Ameen as a political prop. When he was hyping up these bogus claims and false claims about terrorists mingling with migrant caravans and approaching the southern border. Despite the fact that a federal judge has declared him and determined him innocent, he's now in an ICE, a detention facility in Bakersfield. Could someone, if Trump was president and he wanted to make a big deal of it, could he still have the power to extradite him
Yeah.
if you wanted to?
I mean, at this point, we would just call it deport. You know, it's just a different way of kicking someone out of the country. And if that is what the administration wanted to do, that this is just a different way to pursue it. Of course, Omar's entitled to a lot of different protections in the immigration system. In fact, it's harder for the government to kick him out through the immigration system than it would have been through extradition. So we just won under like an unbearably challenging standard, like almost impossible standard for us to win against extradition. He has a lot of protections in a nice proceeding. And he has the right to not be returned to the country of persecution. He has the right not to be returned to a place that will torture and execute him. So the question is, what's the end game? Since it's obvious that Iraq will torture and execute him because we have a PMF colonel who set up the whole case against Omar, who told us on the phone that he would execute Omar and he wanted him returned to him. No. So I don't know how this plays out. I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I could kind of game it out. And it's maddening that he is in custody now, because the normal case with a refugee here with this kind of allegation, that person would be out of custody and they would go to court. They could pay a bond, but they'd be out of custody. Instead, the drumbeat of the false allegations of terrorism has just kept going. And that's just shocking to me, considering what we've gone through this whole time. I mean, I just don't understand it.
So what communication, what have you had with ICE until this point? What are they saying to you, if they're saying anything to you?
They have not responded.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nothing, like not even an acknowledgement. I sent a letter, I mean, the day Omar was put in ICE custody, the day of joy that turned into the day of sorrow. We didn't know where he was. We knew that jail indicated to us that he had been turned over to, quote, another agency. And, we knew what that was likely to be. So I immediately turned around and drafted a request for his release. And I attached the judge's 30-page order from that morning. Hey, maybe this is a mistake. You guys probably didn't see this order. So I'm sending it to you. Please release him, set a bond for him. At least tell me where he is. Nothing. And then the next day, some friends made inquiries in immigration. The immigration circles found out that he was in Bakersfield, but I still have never heard back. And in fact, I've been asking our senators and our congresspeople to make inquiries. And just today, I got a response. ICE responded to one of our senators' offices. Omar Ameen is in removal proceedings, and we have no other information.
Wow.
So that's where we're at. Yeah.
Wow. You say you're not an immigration attorney, but obviously you're getting counsel from your colleagues who are, who specialize in this field. How are they gaming this out? What are they, are they say, well, look, this is in a case typical to him, XYZ has to happen before we get a final outcome. What does that time frame look like?
I think right now he does not have a legitimate court date in immigration court. There's a court date out there. Some people may have commented on it or seen it, but that's actually in San Francisco on the docket for people who are not detained. So that date is not going to happen, and there will be at some point some other date. Where it will be, when it will be, total mystery. Don't know. Will it be in Southern California? Will it be in San Francisco? Don't know. That's odd to me coming from federal district court, but I understand that's how immigration court works. Most people in immigration court don't have lawyers. So imagine trying to navigate this without excellent legal help. Wow. And he does have an amazing attorney who is going to take his case, who has taken his case. So back to your question about, how to game this out. Right now, we are at an informal stage of lobbying and pushing for his release. And I welcome anyone who would like to call the ICE office here in Sacramento, to email the Department of Homeland Security, to email the acting head of ICE, and just to help us in our demand. I know a lot of people have signed a request and sent out letters to their Congress people. I don't really know how to assess the fact that they're not responding. I don't know if that's sort of a oops,
Yeah.
like, oh, how are we going to deal with this? Or if it's a we're tripling down on this and you're a non-entity. There's still time for ICE and this administration to really to save him, to let him out. Just like at the beginning of the extradition case, there's a period now where someone could say, oh, we didn't realize like we have the wrong guy, and we're not about that. We're not a country that wants to do this. And we're in that moment again. And it's odd that we're in that moment. And then we're going to move into a different moment. And I really hope it's not a retread of what we just went through with, the US government going to the mat with these false witnesses, with forgeries, with, nonsense. And nonsense thrown away by a federal judge already. I don't know. So I guess my answer is I don't know. And I wish I did. I really wish I did. Eid is coming up. Omar has not had a Ramadan with his family in the last 2 years. He will be coming up on his 1,000th day of incarceration the day before Eid. And it's not inconceivable that someone would realize and with a stroke of a pen release him. I mean, it's so easy, and it's the normal thing. It's the normal thing procedurally. It's the normal thing factually to release him, at least on bond. So the fact, if he's not released, it feels like the same political nightmare that we've been in since 2018.
Yeah, it's just, the uncertainty, and I hear you describing, the uncertainty for his immediate future. I mean, that uncertainty must be just adding further anxiety on top of, already existing trauma and angst. You've spoken to Omar since he was released from the federal prison. How is he today, right now? How is he feeling?
He is one of the most resilient and patient people I have ever met, and it's just inhuman how kind and happy he can manage to be. And I think maybe it's because he hit bottom so hard, and he's just lived with this case so long in such horrific circumstances at our local jail. I mean, he was treated like an ISIS commander. So he was in maximum security under a status called TSEP, total separation, with serial killer on one side and a serial rapist on the other. And the rest of the pod was a bunch of Aryan Nation skinheads who were charged with murder. I mean, it's quite a scene up there. And yet he read, he managed to persevere, to be happy to see us, to connect and, see his family from time to time where they would come visit. And I think now he's just kind of accepted that it's a roller coaster. And what I don't know is, if he realizes that even if he's released, that his life will never be the same. I mean, I want for him the same quiet life he had before. I would hate to think that he's going to have to spend his entire life under allegations that he's an ISIS commander, out there on the internet with no corrections.
I mean, how do you go about even wiping that kind of, digital trail which is left behind you?
That's why I really am so hopeful that the media will continue to cover this. It's really incumbent on the journalists who rushed to press with the baseless allegations in 2018 to, at the very least, consider writing an update. They were willing to go to press with no evidence, and now we've submitted 170 exhibits, and we have a federal judge saying we were right. and from too many outlets, there's silence. And I don't know how to change that except to just keep talking to whoever is willing to listen, and asking folks to, there's a spot on the New York Times website. I tweeted about this. I've been tweeting for the first time in my life. But there's a spot on the New York Times website that's exactly for this, to say, New York Times, we need you to update your coverage. Here's the original here's the original URL of your article. Here's what happened since. I would love to see that in the pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post. I mean, there are papers of record. How are they silent on this? My only hope is to chase all that terrible stuff to the third page of the Google results, and, at least give Omar a fighting chance to get back to his normal life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if they ever make a movie out of Omar Ameen's life and case, I hope Julia Roberts plays you, because you're a real Erin Brockovich.
I like the sound of that. That would be good. That'd be an upgrade, I think. But thanks.
No, you're a true champion, and yeah, thank you so much for all the work you've done for Omar. Thank you for coming on this this Instagram chat and sharing details of his case. And I know that you're familiar with this, but if for our viewers watching right now, we have started a petition. It's at change.org /free Omar Ameen. Pretty easy. But once again, that's change.org free Omar Ameen. Put your name to it. We're going to get as many signatures as possible and try and raise hell within the Biden administration to free this innocent man. So, Rachelle, thanks again.
Thank you, CJ. Thanks to you and your followers, and to Inside Arabia and their readers for having me. I really appreciate it. Ramadan Mubarak to those who celebrate. I think there may be some on here who are celebrating, and inshallah, Omar will be with his family before the end of Ramadan. I truly believe it's possible, and I appreciate all the support.